Okay, so Diego Sanchez wins in the co-main event, but not without a fairly strong degree of controversy. He was fighting Michel Pereira, this guy who was known for the backflips and the weird antics, and he was huge. He's physically a large welterweight. And we all know the story about Diego Sanchez. He's no longer with a reputable camp. He's just training with some guy who does magic tricks, I guess. I don't really know what his qualifications are because they don't appear to be very strong. He was clearly losing 2 rounds, and in the 3rd round, he takes a knee while he is downed. Referee Jason Herzog separates them. And Brian, this was the interesting part. He asked Diego if he can continue, and Diego responds, if the fight can't continue, if I can't, do I win or do I lose? Now, Herzog did not tell him the answer. He just told him he was going to follow basically the commission and the commission protocol. But yes, the answer was, in that particular state, under those conditions, if the fight did get stopped due to an illegal shot, it is a disqualification. He ended up winning. Now, the question is this. Did Diego Sanchez quit? Did he quit?
You're going to put me in the hot seat?
Let me go first if I can on this one, because I'm going to give you the first one and the next one and the one after that, too. I think he did. I think it's actually pretty obvious that he did. But there needs to be a couple of caveats. Number one, I give credit to Mike Chiappetta. Mike Chiappetta was like, dude, for 15 years, and the guy's 38 years old. He's the only member left from the Ultimate Fighter 1 who's competing. For 15 years, this guy was a blood and guts fighter who gave way more to the sport than he arguably ever got back in terms of financial compensation, among other kinds of accolades. He fought for a UFC title. He fought at 145, 155, 170, 185 inside the UFC. When he won Tough One, that was at middleweight, for crying out loud. Granted, against Kenny Florin, who was also a blown-up middleweight, but nevertheless, at middleweight. And I just remember, for example, you could pick any fight, but it was the one against Martin Kampmann where he kind of got a bogus decision there. But his face was falling off from the kinds of cuts that Martin Kampmann had put on him. If anyone has, even if you want to argue that he gamed the system, maybe he's earned one to game the system. Also, Ben Fowlkes at The Athletic, I thought, put out a really good piece about it, saying, look, dude, look at the rational incentives here. If you keep going, you're probably going to keep getting your ass kicked. You look at his money, you're going to get half. Because if you say, I'm going to continue just so I can get an attaboy pat on the back, well, now you've cut your money in half. You don't even have a rational incentive to not game the system. So why are we mad at these guys for taking the easy way out, but doubling their money when he's at the very end of his career? And I respect all of that. I think Mike Chiappetta is right. Diego has earned one. And I also think he made the rational choice about his future. Here's the part that stands out to me. I don't care that he quit. It doesn't mean anything to me. Guys quit in MMA all the time, and we don't say anything. We quit under striking conditions when we think they can keep going. Somehow this is somehow categorically different. I don't think that it really is. But I will tell you what it was for me. It was very much out of character. In that fight with Martin Kampmann, there is a video at the time, because it was UFC on Versus, they go backstage, and Lorenzo and Dana visited Diego. Because, dude, he took a mountainous amount of abuse. And he pounds his chest the whole time while the doctor is stitching him up, talking about his corazon, his heart, and how he had it for days. You're with this guy who, I don't know what his qualifications are, this trainer, giving him the most fucked up, weird corner advice.
Push strikes, right?
Yeah, he's like, I can do it with one finger as I apply force behind it. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, guy? He's no longer with Jackson's, and maybe that bridge is burned. But my point is, if he's making decisions like this, while rational about the end of his career and while rational for his money, and I don't judge him for it, it is out of character for him. And if it's out of character for him, to me, that tells me that the greater context around him, from the trainer to his dislocation in terms of his community to everything around him, they are not putting him in a position to win, and they are not getting the best out of himself, and you're not getting what makes Diego Diego. I don't care that he quit. I care that he is clearly not in a position to be fighting up to not only up to his potential, but to do right by himself.
I mean, let's be honest right now, okay? We love Diego Sanchez at this point because he's a warrior, but because he's freaking weird. When he does these pre-fight interviews at the media days, and he's talking about, the moon and the sun and the stars, and we laugh at it, and because it's weird. But then when you combine weirdness with, oh my God, this guy's taken an insane amount of punishment over the years, that starts to, you start knocking shit over on your thing. That starts to really fuel the idea like, yeah, this guy's not making smart decisions for himself. And this was a sneaky decision to step out of this fight knowing you would get the win. Why? Because he knows he's at a point in his career where you package a couple losses together, they're going to start having these conversations about, oh my God, this guy's taking so much punishment. Remember when the battle cry was for him to retire after UFC 200 when Joe Lozon beat him in like a minute and a half? Mm-hmm. And then he's sort of been a survivor, alternating wins and losses since then. I think this was just him saying, I lost the fight. I got a chance to gain a cheap win to extend my career and get more paydays. And I think there's a larger problem here with the rule set, Luke. We've talked about Anthony Smith. He could have been your light heavyweight champion against John Jones by doing the exact same thing when Jones had that illegal knee. And you know what? It would have been insanely cheap. And the fact that Anthony Smith didn't do that shows me what kind of man he is, to be really honest with you. Didn't want to take an absolute cheap victory to get a guaranteed rematch and get a footnote in history that he was light heavyweight champion. He wanted to do it the right way. The fact that fighters have this chance to do that, Luke, it doesn't go right by me. Why should that not have
no contest?
Why should that not have been either a no contest or either let's go to the scorecards at that point? Because there's no way that Diego Sanchez was leading at that point. So we can have a whole side conversation about the circus clown Michel Pereira. Do I like obviously some of the fireworks that he does? Yes, but you know my take on him. It's like if you're not doing that in the avenue of winning, and him coming out to all those boos while he's doing the dance routine and burning up all that energy, that's on him because it's now 2 fights in a row. He should have won. And the first one, he gassed himself out and got beat to an inferior fighter. And this time around in the fight he was dominating, he sort of just mentally took him out of it with a bad foul. But I don't think you should be able, especially on the title level, to be able to backdoor a cheap victory like that. If you cannot continue, there's got to be some kind of like, look, there's no winner. It's a no contest. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that's a fine conversation to have. I don't take issue with it. Do you take issue, though, with, do you think Diego has earned the right, as I do, to, okay, if this happened again, well, that would be a problem. But for all he's given, for all the damage he's taken, can't we just look the other way one time?
We can look the other way from the idea of going down Hot Take City and going, they quit, the Warrior quit, blah, blah, blah. Like, he has enough in the bank to earn our respect. But it's still a broken system if you can win fights like that. And I personally still think I'm not seeing a guy who can compete on this level anymore because he got his ass kicked in that fight.
Also, I'm just going to say this one more time. If you're around Diego Sanchez and you have the ability to influence him in any capacity, someone needs to have a hard conversation with him. This is not the only time he's ever left Jackson's. You'll recall when St. Pierre came there the first time, he went and trained with the Ribeiro brothers, Saulo and Shanji. And he had some losing in that time, but he was still learning jiu-jitsu from 2 of the best jiu-jitsu players ever. He had real martial artists around him. Dude, he doesn't even have any of that anymore.
I think he has an astrologist now. I mean, I don't know what's going on in this game.
If that. So the point being is, you can say, as I'm going to say, I'll let him slide on one. You got him mulligan on this one, fine. But the greater context is, dude, they're going to book him in another fight, and he's going to be right back here again, and we're going to be having a conversation. You're like, what the fuck is happening?
Can we learn from the BJ Penn thing? Right? Can we learn as an organization from this? Just letting a guy keep getting extra fights that mean nothing to give him paydays. There's a way you fix that better. Give him a lump sum of money and say you've done a lot for us. You're an ambassador. Here's a prize. You know what I mean?
Or you want to keep fighting this organization? Find a camp. Find a real camp, or we can't book fights with you anymore.
Or how about no, Luke? How about we want to save your health? How about you're not a high-level contender anymore?
I'd be happy with
you're
that
only
too.
going to get hurt at this point.
I'd be happy with that too.
Why else are we seeing him anymore, right? I got excited about this fight because it was weird and there was potential that could be weirdness. The bad potential came out in it. It was one-sided and it had a crappy ending.